You won't believe all these meals that I made that started 2 weeks after I went to the grocery store for the very last time. If you're just meeting me, my name is Amy Cross and this is the Cross Legacy, where I teach you how to save money on groceries. We have a grocery budget of $135 per person, and currently it's just my husband and I here at the house, so our grocery budget is $270 per month. Now this series is video number 7 in the series for 2025, where I have shown you all of the meals that I have made with the ingredients that I buy and have in our house to help you save money on groceries too. In these videos, you also get some behind the scenes glimpses of things that are happening in our family and our house, and transitions that are happening, and just a little glimpse of how busy our lives are, so you can see why some days I batch cook meals and other days I like to make something that I actually stand at the stove for a little bit. But a lot of times I'm just pulling things out of the freezer too. But there's tons of different ideas on how I'm stretching our grocery budget. So if you're looking to save money on groceries, make sure that you're hitting that subscribe button. And in the description for this video is any recipe links that I might mention. And we also put chapter marks down. So if you're trying to skip ahead to a certain recipe, it's really easy to just click on the next chapter and go to that meal. And if you're interested in a certain recipe and we don't have a video for it yet, we are happy to make a video or a recipe for the ones that people are asking for the most. So this video is number 7 in the 2025 series, and this starts on March 25th, which is exactly 15 days since I went to the grocery store last. So for this meal, I did it super quick and easy, and this was just a sheet pan meal. So I cut some of the veggies up and then I added it onto my baking sheet and drizzled it with a little bit of oil and seasoning. The harder vegetables I had put into the oven first, and then I had pulled out some of that sausage that I had bought at Costco. The sausage had came in 3 individual packs, so it's really easy to pull one of those out to defrost. And overall, the whole meal only ended up costing us about $4. So I added the vegetables and then the sausage, and towards the end of the cooking time I ended up adding the zucchini, which is a softer vegetable and doesn't take as long to cook. If you're wondering what those dark things are on the pan, those are sun-dried tomatoes that I added towards the end. But this was a super easy one-pan meal that I could chop and add to the oven, and then we got to enjoy later, and we actually had some of this leftover for lunches. Now I normally keep a lot of these vegetables chopped up already into glass jars with metal lids in the refrigerator. We keep it in an area of our refrigerator that we call the salad basket, so we know that those items are ready to go at any time. So if you are chopping more the night that you're making dinner or trying to use up some of those vegetables in the refrigerator, it's a great technique to practice on having those chopped vegetables ready to go so you can use them for meals. If you're looking how to save money on produce items and you find that they're going to waste too quickly, make sure that you check out my Zero Waste Produce Guide. The link for that is in the description with a special discount code when you get the grocery planner also. The next night was super simple, and I just pulled out a freezer meal out of the freezer that I did on the Meals 6 video, which was baked tortellini. So that was just came right out of the freezer, and we let it defrost for a little while and then reheated it. But it was tortellini with a vegetable meat sauce, and so everything was in that one dish, and I didn't have to worry about having to make any other sides on such a busy day. Now this recipe actually kind of surprised Mike a little bit. This was a Brussels sprout salad that he really enjoyed, and I love when he tries something and he kind of like turns up his nose and doesn't know if he wants to try it, and then he turns and looks at me like, did you write down this recipe? Because he liked it. So he liked it so much, we actually made the recipe and we just filmed a video on it today. So if you want to have this Brussels sprout salad that you can use as a side dish or also as a salad cold and use it for leftovers, it is really delicious and packed with nutrients. And with that salad, I made a whole chicken that I just put in the Instapot. So if you didn't know, you can take a whole whole frozen chicken and put it in the Instapot for an hour with a little bit of broth and seasoning. You can have a perfectly roasted whole chicken. So I have a couple that have been in the freezer that I'm trying to use up. Sometimes I will then, when I take it out, I will broil it for a few minutes so it looks like it has that rotisserie covering on the outside. But it is super simple to get whole chickens and be able to use them completely. And then after we had dinner, then I ended up deboning the chicken and then keeping the chicken and putting the bones back into the Instapot, and I added vegetables and water to that, and we had stock in the next morning. So you can do that in a crock pot too. I just used my Instapot with the crock pot feature to do that, and it was so rainy the next day that I decided that I wanted to make some chicken noodle soup. So I know right now we're in the spring and sometimes we can have gorgeous days like we do today, and other days it can be rainy and miserable here, especially in the Seattle area. I love having ingredients on hand that I can make things that sound good at that moment. So we made some chicken noodle soup. I use these noodles that I get in the freezer section, so I had some of those in the freezer. This is also a great time of year to be looking in your freezer and making sure there isn't things in there that need to be used up before you go into the long summer months. So I knew that those noodles didn't need to sit in the freezer for another 6 months, and I wanted to use them, and it was cold and rainy and wet and a perfect day to do so. I made chimichurri sauce, and at this point I hadn't been to the grocery store in almost 3 weeks, but these were actually from the grocery shopping trip beforehand, so they were like over 6 weeks old at the time. And this chimichurri sauce had parsley and cilantro in it, and I used this over steak bites, which were just amazing. So while I was doing this, I was also chopping up some extra vegetables. We still had plenty of carrots and celery and onions and zucchini left, some radishes, so I was prepping those to make sure that we had them ready for salads and that they would still get used up. Again, we haven't been to the grocery store in weeks, so I have been able to not spend any extra money. And in 2025, we haven't had any takeout at all. We have only went out to dinner for a couple very special occasions like a birthday, and there has been no takeout. There has been no stopping through drive-thrus. We have done really well at sticking to our budget so we can spend that extra going out budget on some extra fun things that we are doing right now. But if you didn't know, the average family is throwing away over 40% of the food that they're buying. And the tips that I teach you how to have zero food waste. For those steak bites, I marinated those overnight and they were delicious. I did it with like a teriyaki glaze and the chimichurri sauce. And then I was able to cut those into about inch pieces and cook them in a skillet. And I did that with a bunch of vegetables, and we had them over roasted vegetables that night for dinner. And then the next day we had the leftover steak we ate over a salad with some balsamic vinaigrette. And speaking of having meat in the freezer, especially steaks, I was on Lisa Bass's Simple Farmhouse podcast, which was going to air right near this video coming out. I'm not sure which one comes out first, but we had a conversation about buying meat and how in her family, the steaks are always the first thing to go. And in our family, the steaks are always the last thing to go, because I normally go towards the things like the hamburger and the roast that I can batch cook and make mini meals out of. And the steaks are normally a one and done meal that I don't gravitate towards as much. So I was kind of laughing that, you know, both of our families, even though we did have a bigger family at home a couple years ago than right now, but our steaks normally are the last things to go. And she was saying that in her family, like the kids don't eat them as much because they save them for special treats just for the adults. So the whole conversation on saving money on groceries with Lisa Bass, that podcast we will link in the description. And if you're brand new here and this is the first video that you've ever seen, I want you to know that all of the food that we bring into this house is based off of that $135 per person grocery budget. So the meat budget and the meat that I buy is still out of that same meat budget. And we are going to do a video specifically on buying large purchases of meat if you're interested in that. We do that once every 2 2 years, and we have enough meat here for just the two of us. And when our family size was bigger, we would do that closer to once every 18 months. This night we actually had breakfast for dinner, but I was batch cooking breakfast, so we had 14 different portions of the breakfast when I got done with it, which was actually 28 servings. So I was making mini meals that evening when I made dinner. So we had it for dinner and then it went into the freezer, but I was just making technically, which would be like egg bites, but I just made it in a casserole dish and then divided it out on a tray. After it was flash frozen, I was able to then put it into bags. Then we can pull out a portion of it at a time and warm it up, and we can both have breakfast for the day. But in that had ground sausage and hash browns and tons of vegetables. And then I used up all the eggs that we had here at the house. I also added some cottage cheese to that. So I was able to blend up the cottage cheese and the eggs together so it didn't have that cottage cheese texture, and I'm just adding extra protein and using up something that I had here on the house. So for this, I cooked the sausage and then I cooked the vegetables beforehand, and then I put it in a really large 11 by 14 pan and added the eggs on top and then put it in the oven to bake until they were done, about a half an hour, and then I topped it with cheese. It was great. So we had that for dinner, and then we had it as prepped meals in the freezer for breakfast. And this is kind of fun news. On this day, we hit 4 million views on YouTube. So if you've been following these meals videos, 2 weeks ago, we just hit 50,000 subscribers. And then within just a couple weeks, we hit over 11,000 more subscribers and 4 million views. So this channel has been around for 3 years now, and I just love the growth that we're having right now, being able to help people save money on groceries. We try really hard to answer every single comment when they pop up on videos. Sometimes they get lost and sometimes YouTube blocks them, but if we see them, we try to answer with links of recipes that we already have or answer questions. So know that we really do try, and we try to base the content on things that people are asking for. So if there's a recipe that you're interested in, make sure you're asking, and we have hundreds of produce videos also to help you save money on groceries. And a little bit of a life update for those who have been following along on this. The gray room, the pantry room, is officially empty and all of those shelves are down. So as we were taking those down, Mike wanted to make an extra note that they were all attached to the walls to studs so they wouldn't move at all if we had an earthquake. We are here in the Seattle area, so that is a concern for us. But we moved out all of those shelves, our childhood china cabinet that came from the farmhouse I grew up in, that got safely out of the house. Mike patched all of those walls up. It's starting to get painted, and that room is getting turned back into a bedroom because we are going to stage the house and have some company over for the holiday for Easter. But we are staging the house to hopefully move very soon. Other things that are happening here at the house, and you'll see why we are so busy on some days, is there's no back deck back here that normally shows in the windows. So they are pouring the new foundation for that, and the wood got delivered the other day, and I can't wait for the new deck to be out here. This is someplace that we love eating dinner out in the summertime, and we have a view of Mount Rainier from the top deck, which is just really lovely to be able to hang out there. And that deck has been so bad for over 2 years. We haven't been able to enjoy it at all because it was unsafe, it was wobbly, it moved around. We just avoided it at all costs and was hoping a strong wind didn't knock it down. And in all the chaos here, we're also going through a bathroom remodel in our main bathroom. So we only have one shower tub in the house. That bathroom has been completely remodeled in the last couple weeks, but there has been a lot going on. Our house is 1,300 square feet. So if one room is under construction, it pushes craziness all over the house. If there's 2 rooms under construction at the same time, it's really crazy. This day swept by me and I didn't even realize how late it was, and I needed dinner quickly. And I ended up pulling out that sausage again out of the freezer, which defrosted pretty quickly in some water. And I made a 1-pot lemon orzo sausage using my lemon orzo Orzo chicken recipe. So I was able to make that in less than 30 minutes. The recipe for that is on the blog, and it is super easy, one pan, and it was done. And we had dinner without getting takeout on a busy day. Another busy day here packing and doing things. I ended up pulling out a Farro grain bowl that we had in the freezer. We ended up even eating those in the little 𝐋𝐈𝐍𝐊𝐒 dishes after we warmed them up. Like, it was nothing fancy, but it was a complete meal. It was a meatless meal that had all the nutrients that you needed, and it had butternut squash with it. So we also have that recipe on the blog. Now we're finally moving into April and going to the grocery store for the first time. So this is our April grocery shopping haul, and we did a grocery shopping haul video that's already up on YouTube. So make sure that you're checking that out. We've been filming all of our grocery hauls now for a long while, so you can see what kind of ingredients I'm bringing into the house. We are a mostly organic ingredient based family, and so I try to prioritize things that are the best for our health and for allergies, and I'm also diabetic. So those are my main concerns, trying to get organic as much as possible and staying within our budget, which is $135 per person. Speaking of not going to the grocery store, I have all the ingredients here that I need, but for 2 weeks since St. Patrick's Day and seeing somebody's Instagram post, I have been wanting sweet potato hash with corned beef, and I had corned beef. I had everything else that I needed, but I didn't have a sweet potato. And can I just say that it takes a lot of determination and willpower not to go to the grocery store when you live so close to the grocery store that you could practically walk there. And I wanted these sweet potatoes, but I waited until our grocery shopping trip, and it was still delightful having it 2 weeks later. But I made 𝐂𝐈𝐍𝐊𝐒's sweet potato hash with corned beef, and I used some of that corned beef brisket that I had made for St. Patrick's Day that I had in the freezer. And it was kind of funny because I didn't tell Mike what it was until we sat down to eat dinner, and he was enjoying it, and then he asked, "Oh, what's this called?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's corned beef and hash." And he's like, "Oh, I'm so glad you didn't say what the name of that was," because he thinks of corned beef and hash coming out of a can from his childhood, and it's something that he wouldn't have really been excited to eat, and he really enjoyed this. And on top of it, we had a soft boiled egg, and I am saying this mostly for me, so I remember I liked my egg being soft boiled at 5 minutes, and I kept Mike's in the pan for 2 more minutes, so his was a 7-minute egg. He likes his yolk a little more firm. And since we're talking about avoiding going to the grocery store, the reason I avoid going to the grocery store is so that we can stay in our grocery budget, being able to have the ingredients that we actually need. That sweet potato was a want. We didn't actually need to have it that day, but to have the food in the house that I need, that I know that I can make the meals that our family needs, brings me so much peace and security. And over the years, we dealt with some very scary financial times. There was actually a season of our life during a medical crisis that our house was in foreclosure for a really long time, and we kept paying that payment every time, which was either 30 or 60 days late. But that constant schedule of the mailman would come and we would have to sign the letter saying if we were late even 1 day on the next payment, our house would be immediately in foreclosure. That went on for us for years. And with Mike's income, he's a state employee, so it doesn't change at all, hardly ever. Sometimes it even decreases on us instead of getting raises. That we have been able to figure out that he can pay all of our bills and keep that grocery budget for us for $135 per person. So any other like household kind of fun kind of things are things that I've always paid for whenever I can. So at times I work different side hustles to make sure that our kids could do the sports that they wanted, or even right now I want to buy some new things in the house. We're, getting ready for this remodel and wanting to put some new furniture in the house. I'm doing some extra things on the side to bring in some of that extra money. So we are not going out to eat and doing some extra things. So our budget is always within our means, whatever our means are at the time. But I love that knowing that $135 per person can feed our family, and I don't ever have any stress about being able to wait until payday to have money to go to the grocery store, or if there isn't food in the house. So I really encourage you to follow along with the things that I'm teaching on these videos and our grocery shopping hauls and reducing food waste to get ideas so you can get some of that stress off of your shoulders too. I just pulled out these pumpkin muffins out of the freezer. I put them in bags of 12, 9 or 12, depending on how many will fit in them. But I love that they're high protein and low sugar, so we can use these as a snack or as a breakfast. And they're really nice to have a sweet treat that's around that's healthy. And with this grocery shopping haul, I was able to get some fresh pineapple that was in season and kiwi. And as I was making notes about this to talk about it, I was kind of laughing because we are kind of both allergic to both of these items, but we both get really excited about bringing them home. So the pineapple, Mike can't eat very much of it if it is raw, and one of our kiddos. But if we grill it on the grill and cook it a little bit, then he can eat all that he wants. I often will keep half of it raw, and then we will cook or grill the other half of it. And then the kiwi, with the kiwi, I am allergic to the skin of it, and it feels like needles on my skin for a couple days after I touch it. So I make sure I don't touch kiwi at all. And if I am going to have it in the house and want to eat it, then I need to have Mike wash it for me and peel it for me, and then I'm able to eat it. But it's so nice to be able to move through the seasons and have new tropical fruit that's coming into season right now and take a break from other items. And I love how we both get excited about those new things, but it also opens up your ideas to the meals that you're going to be having with the new produce items that are coming out. So with that grilled pineapple, one of the first things that we made was teriyaki chicken sandwiches. I got those hamburger buns on my last grocery shopping trip that were only 89 cents, and we only pulled them out of the freezer 2 at a time. So we've been able to use those for hamburgers and sloppy joes, and now teriyaki chicken sandwiches. The chicken, I ended up making my own teriyaki sauce. I have that recipe on the blog. I'm allergic to soy, so I can't get any jarred teriyaki sauce, and I make my own. And then I added also, as I was making the marinade, I kept a little bit of it separate. It wasn't the stuff that was on the raw chicken. It was separate, and I added that to a little bit of cottage cheese, and that ended up being our dip for the homemade French fries that I made. So I took 2 russet potatoes, and I was able to make oven fries that were crispy and delicious, and I added some garlic to them, and then we were dipping those in that teriyaki sauce that had extra protein in it. So the meal was really fun, and it was something different that we haven't had since last summer, and we really enjoyed it. If you're wanting to make your own fries, make sure that you're cutting those up into the fry size pieces, but then you want to soak them in water for at least 30 minutes. I actually did this earlier in the day when I had a break, and then I put them in the refrigerator in some water, and then I rinsed them and laid them out on a towel to dry for a little bit before I put the oil on them and seasoned them and put them in the oven. The first 20 minutes they go into the oven is at 325, and then you can move them around a little bit on the tray and then put them in for another 20 minutes at 425. It gets you the perfect crisp diner fries that you would get out at a restaurant, but these are way healthier for you. So that wraps up where we are for the Meal 7 video. I wanted to stop right here because the next day I actually leave to go somewhere, and the meals are a little bit different during where I'm at and who I'm cooking for, and it's kind of fun. And I wanted that all on a separate video. So make sure that you're following along. This is number 7. 1 through 6 is in the description, so you can find all the other ones. And we are also listing all the recipes. And if there's a certain recipe that I mentioned that you want to know more about, make sure that you're asking. And I keep track of all the meals that I'm making in my grocery planner, which is really handy to be able to go back through the seasons and see what we're eating. So I have new ideas on what to have, and it keeps track of the ingredients that I have in my house. So with the grocery planner, which has 5 different covers, and the Zero Waste Produce Guide, these are on a bundle in the description, and there's also a discount code on top of that. So if you want the best deal that you can get for these 2 items, make sure you're checking out the description.